Well, we thought it would be a good idea to have an all-church, pretty formal banquet to celebrate and get excited about building and raising funds for the church. Alameda Plaza was a brand new, fairly new hotel right on the plaza, one of the nicest spots in town.
And that we would beat the drums for a month or so to get everyone involved, everybody interested. And we turned the ladies loose. One of the last decisions they made, Gloria Willingham called me and said, "Pastor Ingalls, we've done everything we can, done in preparation. We're so excited about this project, but we ran out of money." And the way Gloria laughed, she laughed. I said, "You ran out of money? How much do you need? $1,000 bucks?" She said, "No, we need $67. I said, $67? You have to call me about releasing $67? Well, she said, "I really called to tell you that we're all through with our work and it's beautiful there." She said, "Really, what we need, $67 to buy candles for the tables." We just thought we needed candles. Well, they went out that day and bought their candles and put the bill on my desk.
All met in the lower level of the Alameda Plaza and secured one of the best guys we could think of as a speaker, Earl Lee, pastor of Pasadena First Church.
And I said, "Earl, I want you to speak on something that would befit the occasion. We want faith. We want to be able to come up to the task."
Earl Lee gave a great talk. He spoke on Peter walking on the water and Peter's loss of faith, and referred to the need for faith in building a new sanctuary, and commented that because Peter lost his faith, he initiated what he called the Glub Glub Club.
He had no idea what was about to happen. And he spoke, and there was a rousing applause. He took his seat, and I introduced Dr. Young to pray the benediction. And Dr. Young stood to pray. And just then, one of the ushers, one of the waitresses came running in. It was the maitre d', came running in all the way from those double doors around to where I was. I mean, it was a foot race. It looked like a man possessed. Came running up to me and he whispered in my ear, "Pastor Ingalls, you've got to leave. A flood is coming. The creek is over its banks." I said, "What do we have, half hour?" He said, "No, you have 5 minutes."
The storm had moved from the west to the east, and kind of a 100-year occurrence. It turned around and came back and rained extremely hard all the time we were in the dining room.
And Dr. Young was praying, and he wouldn't quit praying. And so finally, we just started to leave.
And just as he said amen, whoosh, the water came rushing in.
I remember that the water was at my knees at that point, and I remember the walls just creaking as the walls were starting to give way from the pressure of the water.
All the lights went out, and the candles were burning.
Then we went upstairs in the main foyer, and there was a baby grand piano, and Wendell Williams started playing, and we started singing. They wouldn't let us leave. I think it was about 4 o'clock in the morning before we got out.
2 of us stayed behind. That was Howard Hamlin, who had to write the check, and I. And Howard Hamlin said, "I'm going to stay right here until I get this check written." I said, "No, you aren't. You're getting out of here." Well, the manager was right there. He said, "You're going to stay until you write the check." So the 3 of us stood there until now the water was over our knees when Howard signed the check and gave it to the manager, and we all 3 got out of there.
I remember standing in the lobby of the Alameda looking out on Brush Creek. The water was well over the banks of the cement part of Brush Creek, and there were cars floating down the river and tumbled over the top of Warnell Road Bridge.
And water was gushing in and out of all those fine antique shops. And fur coats and antiques were coming out, and it was a terrible night of disaster.
We lost about 25 cars in that flood, and that night, by being courteous, when I was pulling in, it was the last spot down and someone else was coming, and I let them have it, and I went up on the next floor, and I just got water to the floorboards of my car.
It was a beautiful occasion, and it ended on a pretty exciting note, really. Could have been worse, could have been disastrous. I believe before we got out of the banquet room, the water was up high and the wooden tables were floating up, almost bumping the ceiling before the water started to recede.
Without those candles, some of us would have drowned that night.
And of course, we had a lot of fun referring to our being members of the Glub Glub Club.
Following the flood at the Alameda, we were giving thanks the rest of the week for our deliverance. And that morning in worship, when I called for the ushers, there was a holy quietness on the congregation that morning because we felt we had all been delivered. So when I called for the ushers to come forward, in that hush, all you could hear was the squish, 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 squish of the shoes of the ushers as they walked down the aisle, because their shoes were still wet from the flood. And it reminded us all, and everyone started to laugh and clap and rejoice in the Lord for our deliverance. So we'll never forget that scene. We'll never forget the flood, nor will we forget those squishy shoes.